Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Laura Pyszora on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from the UK. Well, she's originally from Poland, which you could recognize from her accent when she starts talking here. But she's on here to, share her health and fitness journey. And she's a woman with a lot of significant achievements. Like she's the first overall bodybuilder from Poland to become a, Ifbb pro, and she's the overall bodybuilding champ of Poland as well. And yeah, just a lot of stuff that she's accomplished already. But Laura, thank you so much for coming on.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I got to ask first of all, because I ask this to every single guest, what's the weather like today in your part of the UK?
In UK, well, it's not rainy as much it was before, but yeah, it's not too cold, so yeah, it's not too bad at the moment.
Was it hard for going from Poland and getting used to sort of the dreary UK weather where it's just it's cloudy and rainy almost all the time?
And I'm here just over 6 years, so I'm kind of used to it. First, when I came, I was like, oh my god, like it's not nice, and like most of the year, it's like it's quite grey. But yeah, I'm kind of used to it this now, so it's not too bad.
There's a reason why the British are so pale as they are, because they just have no sunlight really coming in
No
at all.
sun, yeah,
No
it's
sun, yeah.
probably like six weeks in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to get things started, I mean, why don't you just give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and become a bodybuilder?
Oh, well, the story starts when I was like around 13, 14 years old, and I watched like strongman's competition. And I just like big people, and I was thinking like, oh my god, they huge. And then I love like if they got like biceps and then abs, and I was like, I love it. So I was training at home. Obviously, I was like 14 years old girl, so didn't done much. And then didn't go really like often to the gym or anything. And then in 2016, when I moved, 2015 actually, when I moved to UK, I just need to find myself again. So I started going to the gym. And then I was like, oh, actually, like my body changed quite quickly. So I was like, I really like that. Obviously, I didn't think about competing or anything like this. For me, it was just more like, just getting more healthy, just look better. And then my boyfriend didn't like it. He was like, "Oh, you can't live that way. You'll be like too muscly and everything." And I'm like no, like I like it. So he didn't like it. So I decided to break up with him. We've been engaged, and then when I broke up with him, I decided I'm going to step on stage.
Hey, that's awesome. I mean, and that's great for you that you're able, because I mean, that's one of the things I think separates so many people from when they first get started. If they do have that significant other or that family that's like, hey, I don't want you to do this. A lot of times people do just say like, okay, that's fine, then I won't do it, and then they listen. But what was your other family members' reaction like when you announced to them like, hey, I want to give bodybuilding a try?
Well, my mom was a bit shocked. Obviously, now I'm much more like bigger and heavy than like I was like in like 3 years ago when I started. So my first show was in 2018. So I only compete actually 3 years. And with NPC, I'm since last year, and I'm already pro, which is like massive achievement. But my mom, when I started, she was like, "Oh my god, like what did you done to yourself?" And she was like, "Why you do it?" But because we live different countries, my mom actually lives in Italy, so she couldn't see like my lifestyle and everything. So she was quite shocked, and like she was like, I'm not sure about that, but obviously she wouldn't tell me no, and obviously she couldn't like stop me. But this year, actually, I went to Italy and I done amateur Olympia over there, and my mom watched me, and she was shaking. And then since then, when she see me on stage, she say, if you wanna go to women's bodybuilding, if you wanna be huge, she say just do it, because she saw me like at home preparing the food, and then she saw me like I need to wake up and do cardio and then do my training, and she saw like I barely eat any food, and she saw me on stage, and she just see everything like what I'm doing, and she just say, yeah, that's like I can tell like you love this and you do that from your heart. So she said, yeah, just go for it.
Wow, your family's really spread out from Poland. You got a mom in Italy, and then you're in the UK. I mean, that's
Yeah.
quite the journey. But I mean, when you were getting into bodybuilding, were there any myths and misconceptions about the sport that you believe? Because unfortunately, the general public, there are so many things that people think about the sport that aren't true.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like people think that you just go to the gym and after a month you will be like, I don't know, monster or like whatever, and then you can just like lift tiny bit of weights and it's like that. It's not that. That's what like, upsets me a lot. Like with the bodybuilding, it's that I would say normal people don't understand how much we need to sacrifice. Obviously, this is us choice, our choice, what we're doing, and that we follow the diet, we follow the nutrition, we're going to the gym 3 times a day or like whatever. But people don't see that hard work and they just think, oh yeah, they just lift weights, that like whatever. It's not like that. Like because I start bodybuilding and change so much mentally, like I'm much more stronger person. I know that whatever I put myself, I can achieve, and this is not goals only at the gym. This is like my like private goals, or like if I wanna like, I don't know, learn something new, whatever. I know if I will actually work hard for it, I will have that. And I think the bodybuilding teach so much discipline as well, and teach the fact that like if you actually work hard for something, then you can achieve it, and then you appreciate like your life much more, which like normal people don't have that, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it really, and yeah, it does just show you the limits that you can go to, and it really, it's an inspiration for a lot of people that don't compete. But I mean, I love to talk genetics on this podcast because so many people do not understand that. I have so many of my guests on that hear this all the time. It's like, oh my God, I want her arms, I want his abs, I want their back. And it's just like, you do not understand that if you train and eat just like someone, you're not going to get the same results just because of genetics and
No.
other factors. But whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as
Mhm.
much. And they have that one body part that just lags behind that they have to train to oblivion to get it to catch up. What was one body part for you that really took off when you started training? And then what was one body part that you've had to work so long and hard on to get it to even like catch up to anything?
Oh, that's hard question. So I always wanted to be big in general. So I think my shoulders, when I started, that was quite my weaker point. My good point was always my legs. I think they grow quite easy. But yeah, definitely my shoulders. Like I wanted to have them like really like big around and curl. Like my biceps always was quite big, so I didn't have that problem. So yeah, probably my shoulders.
And that's what did you do to get them to look like they are now? Because that's the one thing that women, especially on this podcast, says, "Oh my God, I want bigger shoulders. I want good shoulders." That's the one area that I think they struggle with. So was it just just overloading them with training, or was there any like secrets that you came up with that you're like, "Oh, this is what's really going to help me with my shoulders"?
I train my shoulders for a bit for like twice a week. And then I got my new coach and we changed my program. So before I was training so long, and then I think I trained too long at the gym. And when I cut my training down, but I was doing more intensity and more high volume and start working more. So I train shoulders only once a week, but I do like really intense like workout. And I think for like everyone, because everyone have like different like bones, the different structure, you just need to try different exercise and see what actually works for you best. But I think sometimes less it's more.
That's one thing that people do not understand, especially in the sport. A lot of times, is yeah, less is more, and I couldn't have said it better myself. Because so many people they just want to go just for being the biggest. When it's like people don't realize with bodybuilding, it's not being the biggest. It's being the most conditioned. It's being the most, having the most proportion.
It's mix of
Yep.
everything. Yeah, it's mix of everything. Yeah.
I mean, you could have 10-foot long biceps, but it won't matter. If your legs or your stomach isn't really up to shape. But I mean, when it comes to also the nutrition aspect of this sport, nutrition is, I mean, one thing that people do not talk about as much as they should. What were some of the big nutritional changes that you made when you realized that, like, hey, I'm gonna have to put on a lot of size and muscle?
Well, that was up to my coach. So 100%, I changed my diet a lot. So obviously, I eat a lot of proteins. I eat much more than I eat before, and quite high fats, which I think that helps me a lot as well. But yeah, people think it's just like, oh, like when they even cutting, they think like, oh, I just cut carbs and that's it. It doesn't work like that. Like you still need to have like high proteins. For women, especially, we need high fats as well because that is about like hormones and everything. So yeah, I think yeah, probably that.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, that's protein, protein, protein. If I could just stamp it down on people and just be like, hey, that's really what you're gonna need to achieve when it comes to this. But I mean, also, just this is so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport, and people do not understand that because you only see the physical changes. Like, unless someone knows you, like really knows you, they're not really gonna notice the mental changes that happen. What has this journey been like for you mentally? Because that is something that I think is like 100 times more important than the physical changes, and it's really something that's not talked about as much as it should be.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people don't realize how much mentally strong you need to be to do it at sport. People think like, oh, you're just on a diet, and I'm like, no, it's not just on a diet because if for like 7 months in the year I have 6 meals a day and every meal it's exactly the same. After a few weeks, after a few months, you start getting crazy. Like if you go to the shop and then you got like millions of products, but you can only eat 8 products, and that's how you eat for like 8 or 9 months or like 6 months. Takes your mentality like you're draining. So you need to actually get through this, and you just need to understand, and you need to grow towards that. 100% makes the bodybuilding makes me much more stronger person, makes me like if I actually focus on something that I know I can achieve the goals. And people I think don't realize how actually much the food they got I don't know, emotional, like the emotional with food. They don't realize that actually they start doing the diet. And then you need to go through this, and even when you're hungry you can't eat. I'm not like I can't just go to the fridge, open it and just have something. I need to stick to my plan, and that's how I see like mentally makes me like much more stronger person, and that like whatever like I put in my mind, actually you can achieve it.
100%. I mean, you're not the average looking woman, too, as well. And I mean, if you're to walk out dressed the way that you are right now, I mean, you're going to get stares just because it's human nature when they see something that's not of the normal to just be like, wow, that's interesting. How have you dealt with that as your career's gone on? Sort of just realizing that, like, hey, I'm going to draw more people's attention than normal.
Well, I don't really go out as much, but if I do, yeah, people do stare. People do ask the question, like they ask like who you are, where like what you are, and things like that, which is like funny because like for me it's normal the way how I look, but if I stood like next to like I would say normal person, then I know I stand out. But like for me, because I see myself every day, for me I'm small. I still want to be bigger. So yeah, so that's quite funny. As people react differently. Some people react like nicely. Some people like ask me if I'm a man. But you just need to, like you just need to accept that, and just don't, like these days when somebody comment on me and say, "Oh, you have like manly voice," or like you look like a man or something. I'm just like, thanks, and
So,
I'm
or
just
just
like,
tell them what
well,
kind of men, what, just tell them what kind of men are you hanging out with then, if I look like one.
I know, and I'm just saying I look
Yeah.
better than like
Yeah.
90% of average men.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if you call me that, that's fine. Like for me, that as a compliment because for me that means I just got that size.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great attitude to have because yeah, it has been getting better, I think, especially for female bodybuilders, but there still are some people out there that are just for some reason find a way to go out of their way to try and, insult people, which is just absolutely stupid. But I mean,
Yeah.
you're the first Polish women's bodybuilding IFBB pro. How important was that for you and how much really do you carry that along with yourself just knowing that like, yeah, you are the first woman from Poland to ever be an IFBB pro?
I know. So that was crazy. So basically, when I went to registration, they asked me if I wanna enter as well, like women's bodybuilding, because they say they got few girls, and they say like, oh, why not? And I was like, actually, like, I was like, yeah, do it. I would just do it, whatever. And they asked me, And I was just like, okay, I will do it, like go there. But obviously for me, the main thing was like to do women's physique, because that category I was before. And they say, yeah, that's fine. But when we went on the day, they first was the women's bodybuilding and after was women's physique. So I was like, okay, I'll just go there, just do the posing. I barely actually even know the women's bodybuilding posing, but yeah, I would just do it. So I went there and then they took me straight to the center. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, now it's a game. I was like, now I need to fight. And the head judge was actually Gary from USA, so he judged Olympia. So for me, that was a lot. Like person like him will judge me, and then I was stood in the middle whole way of the like comparison round, and he was like turning us all the time. Like I think we stood there for like 10 minutes. For me, it was like forever. And it was like back pose, front pose, and this and this. I was like, oh my God. I said, when this will be finished. But all the way I was in the center. So when I walk out, I was like, oh my God. Like, did I win it? But I didn't think of it. I was thinking probably I will be second or whatever. And then when they say obviously the second girl, and then I knew it, I win it. I just went to the ground, like I I was just on the floor. I just couldn't believe it. And the fact that I'm actually first Ifbb Pro women's bodybuilder in like Polish, it's massive thing for me. And even week before I was in Hungary, I told my coach that I'm thinking to actually move up to women's bodybuilding, because I just wanna be a monster. I wanna be huge. Obviously, like I obviously like all aesthetic look, but I just wanna be big. And he was, yeah, we'll see how we'll be. So for me, that fact what happened, that was kind of like blessing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's surprising to me that you're the only one from Poland, because Poland, as I've come to know, is like they got a pretty big bodybuilding community there. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. But yeah, that's just so great. And I mean, you brought up sort of, and I love to talk about posing, because that is one thing that so many people do not understand is the hardest thing for most of these competitors that I have on. I mean, it's harder than your nutrition, it's harder than the working out. What has your experience with posing been like?
And mine, so I started from figure in 2018, and that wasn't for me. Like I didn't like it. I feel really like awkward, and like my posing wasn't really great. So this year when I moved to women's physique, and obviously it's barefoot and everything was much more better, and I fit in the posing much better, and I love it. So now for me, posing it's not easy, but I love it. I enjoy doing it. I think it's because I just find myself in that poses. So I do really like it. But previously, in figure class, oh yeah, it was a nightmare. It's really hard, and people don't realize because this look easy, but they don't realize you need to hold the pose, you need to flex the muscle, you need to tense, and it's painful. It's really painful to do it.
Oh, absolutely. And out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
Oh, my favorite pose, I would say, is side triceps and front double biceps. And the least favorite, probably abdominals and thighs, because I got amazing abs, but I just don't like the pose.
Well, it's hard to make it look natural and flowing, really, when it's just not, you can't really do it. I mean, I've seen only like a handful of posing routines that somewhat try to do that and almost to succeed it, but I haven't seen it yet. It's a very hard pose to do. Yeah, 100%. So, and when you're walking up on that stage, what is that moment like for you when you realize, like, hey, let's be honest, preps are not fun. Anyone that says that preps are fun, I want to take them to an insane asylum, because I mean, it's just, that's not the case. If it's fun to you, then you are probably sick in the mind a little bit. But what is that
I
moment?
like prep.
Again, everyone, we have a case example right here. I'm going to call the police on her basically when we're done talking to her, then, and get them. We're like,
But
we have
I
a, yeah.
actually like it because I think for me, when I'm on prep, I feel like I'm control of my life.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
control of myself. So even when I'm hungry and sometimes I'm starving myself, but I'm thinking in my head like I'm the person like who pushing myself to the limits, and then I like to see how far I can go. That's the same like with me lifting heavy weights. It's like how far I can go. It's yeah, you need to be a bit crazy, but yeah, I like
Oh, and hey,
it.
I guess that's better for you because it's like, hey, you're the one that has to do it, so you might as well, like it and enjoy it. But when you walk up on that stage, what is that feeling like for you? Just realizing that you're like, hey, I put in all this hard work for this, and now it's finally time to show it off. And what is that moment like when you walk on that stage?
I love it. So like I don't like in daytime I don't really smile often. But when I'm
You're
going
from
on
Eastern Europe, okay? You're not supposed to smile. That's the
stage,
stereotype.
but when I go on stage, it's I just feel like that's for me. That's my moment. I love it. I love all the posing. I look at the judges and then I try just show best version of myself. So I do really enjoy that. I never been scared. I never been like some people like when they go on stage they feel like stressed and everything. I never had that. Obviously, yeah, I do get stressed a bit, but it's like it's good stress if that makes sense. I'm so excited and like yeah, I just can't wait to go on stage again.
And like the moment that you're talking about where they made you, pose for like 10 minutes straight, how do you deal with that mentally? Because posing is so hard, and especially as down and depleted as you are when you walk up on that stage. I mean, the normal person would last like 5 seconds and then be like, yeah, screw this, I'm done. So how do you just deal with that mentally where, yeah, you're just thinking to yourself like, oh my God, how do you pull through that? Because that seems like the most impossible thing out of a prep is when you go on stage and you pose for as long as sometimes they make you.
Well, for me, like my last show, we was on stage really, really long time. They really hold us so long. So for me, it was like for me that was a fight. I knew it. I need to win. I went there to win, and that's what only I wanted. So that was in my head. That was like, okay, I need to keep going, do it better, hold the pose, because you just want to win. So I think that's how you need to think in your head. Like you just do it because that's what you have to do to be the best. And then any second you drop down or like you don't smile or something, the judges will see everything. So just why you just need to hold yourself and you just need to try your best if you just want to win it.
No, absolutely. And that's, most people do not understand that. Yeah, you got to keep that smile on. You got to keep that look on. It's never ending. And even if you put it down for a second, I mean, you could get marked down and, it's just, yeah, it's really just you just got to be on firing on all cylinders really. But one of the things that people do not understand as well about the sport is just the off season look that a lot of bodybuilders have where it's like, you're not gonna be able to maintain that look 24/7. A lot of people, if they run into someone who's a bodybuilder in the off season, they might even say to them like, hey, you're a bodybuilder, like you don't even look like one, so let's
Season
yeah,
now.
yeah, exactly, well, exactly. And it's like, how do you deal with that mentally, just knowing that like, hey, I am gonna have to put on some weight after a show? And has it gotten easier for you to accept that as your career's gone on?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is that people think off season. They think it's off season. That means we don't train. So I don't really like that word. I always try explain people that's improvement season because people think like, oh, off season, so now you can eat, you can just rest, relax, and I'm like, no, this is the time when I need to push harder and when I need to work really harder. Um, I'm off season at the moment. I think 10 kilograms heavy than on stage. But I know I built some size because for me building is quite easy. Thank God.
You'd be in the
But
wrong
even
sport.
like
You'd
if
be in
I
the
go,
wrong sport if it wasn't.
yeah, probably I won't be in that sport. That's true. But the thing is like even if I go to the gym now, like I still can see some definition on me, so I don't really have that big problem. But yeah, people think you can hold that look like all year round. Just why that's what I always explain. That's not healthy. That's not good for you because being 5% body fat, it's not healthy. It's painful. It's painful. So I always explain people, even like if I hear some noises or like whatever, like people talking, I can hear it more. I'm much more sensitive to everything, like everything around me. And people how? And I'm like, because you actually don't have any body fat. So your body getting crazy and like all the hormones and everything. It's like it's really like difficult process. So I always try to explain that, but yeah, people like don't realize that the off season is actually the season when you actually need to work even harder.
Yeah, I mean that's where, I mean, unfortunately I compare it to like being a businessman where you gotta spend money to make money, you gotta put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, unfortunately for a lot of people, those two do go hand in hand. But what is your relationship with cardio like? Because I'm sorry, I hate cardio more than life itself. I can go for a walk, as long as anybody, but I mean, just that running. And I mean, unfortunately, when you do become a bodybuilder, you're sort of forced to sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. What is your relationship with cardio like?
I used to hate it, but now I even do cardio now when I'm off season. I do it cardio 7 times a week in the morning because I realize when I do cardio when I'm off season actually makes me more fitter. And because I'm quite heavy, like I'm nearly 80 kilograms and I'm like only 160 centimeters, so I'm really short and I'm really heavy. So for me to actually do that cardio, I just feel much more fit. So yeah, now it's fine. But when I started, I was like, God, just not that. But what else you can do? You have to do it. You just need to go through it.
How do you go about finding clothes that fit you? Because most people do not make clothes for female bodybuilders.
Yeah, so that's the biggest issue at the moment. I need to. I've been most of my wardrobe, and I can't. I just live in gym clothes at the minute. I didn't buy anything, but that's really big issue because like I do have small waist, but I'm really wide, and obviously my legs my legs is like 25 inches. Uh, so yeah, so find the clothes. It's really hard. Yeah.
I mean, and anyone out there who's looking to make like, like clothes for women that bodybuild, I have more of an audience than
Follow
most,
me.
yeah, yeah, call her. Yeah, she'll be willing to spend some money on that. So yeah, that's a business. And yeah, the sport's just getting, bigger and bigger. But sleep is one of the things that is not talked about as much as it should be, because anyone that disagrees with me that it's the most important thing in this lifestyle, I tell them pull an all-nighter and then go and try to work out and then tell me how that works out for you. What is your sleep schedule look like? I mean, how much do you try to sleep? Because I have a wide variety of answers on that question. I have people who, they need like 12 hours to function. Then I have people that have, like 4 hours that they need to function in. Where do you fall on that? Because sleep is just the one thing that, I mean, especially as you get into your prep, just becomes so much more important than almost anything else.
So on my prep, probably I sleep only like around 5 hours a night because I just can't sleep. But I do have naps during the daytime on prep, so I try sleep at least 30 minutes a day, so that helps a lot. On my off season, because I eat a lot, so I easily sleep 8 hours a night. So I don't have in the off season. I never have problem like that. I can sleep like 8 9 hours. And if I have like heavy workout, I always after workout I have a food and then I sleep. That's always what I do. Obviously if I'm able to. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah. And especially, with that sleep, it's just, I'm glad that you get more during the off season because obviously you should, but it is just so important and it's rarely, if ever, really talked about. But I mean, one thing that I want to talk to you about too is that, like this last year has been sort of like a watershed year in bodybuilding where it's, all these people have died from, just people are finally starting to get aware through all these deaths, of some of the extremes that people go to in this sport. What has been your reaction like to that? Because I think it has been sort of an eye opening year where people are like, oh, some of these extremes that people go through, are very extreme. And what has that, sort of been like for you, just sort of recognizing that, like, hey, this sport is being exposed a little bit more for, just some of the things that people go to?
Well, the thing is for me, so when I started for first 2 years, I was a natural bodybuilder, and then I knew it. I wanna go one day to Olympia, and that's my goal. So I knew it. I need to change the federation, and obviously what I need to do to go there. I was like learning quite a lot, like about all different drugs, pads, and everything. What people take and everything. So for me, the fact what happening now doesn't actually shock me as much. It's really sad, but I do understand that people when they're going that far because I think I would do the same. Um, I just want like obviously I don't take a lot now because I got great genetics and then I don't have to. But I do understand that people how much they pushing further, because if the judges tell them you need to look like this and this and this, you need to change that, you need to cut this, you need to have wider, I don't know, wider back, but slimmer waist and everything, they just following what they told them. They just want to win. They just do it whatever is possible to actually go on that stage and win. And the fact when you're actually winning, it's that amazing that I do understand them. It's really sad, and need to be eyes opening for people, obviously, but that's extreme sport. That's how we're living. So
I mean, yeah, and it just yeah, unfortunately it comes with the territory, and yeah, I mean it's tragic, but I mean it's a necessary evil for a lot of it. Like you said, if you want to go to the Olympia, you could be the most genetic blessed person on the planet, and I honestly don't think you could be natural and go to the Olympia. I mean, it's just unfortunately just doesn't really go with it. But I mean, just dealing with all the stuff that you deal with in a day, what would you say is probably the one thing that the general public gets wrong about bodybuilding if you were to go up and ask someone like what they thought about bodybuilding?
um I think the fact that they think we just getting like this in shape, and that we don't actually work hard, because they don't see all that sacrifices. They don't see that the diet, the like you need to wake up 4 a.m. like me on prep, and then have that meals, and then like everything, and that mental struggle, like when you can't go out, you don't actually see people, and then you don't want to see people because you're just too tired. And they don't see that. I think like people think like, oh, you're just getting in shape, you just like that. It's not. They just don't see that hard work. I think that's really shame.
Yeah, and that's, I just wish there would be like a camera crew that would just follow around a bodybuilder like in their entire prep journey and, really just show to people like, hey, it is so much more than just, waking up, working out a little bit, and then going to bed. I mean, it's just and unfortunately that's what so many people feel, but it is just so not true. And I'm glad that, people do bring this up on this podcast because, any real exposure to that, would really help. But what is one area that you are looking forward to growing on your body the most this off season?
Oh God, I think I wanna grow all over. Well, 100%, I wanna bring my upper body to be bit bigger. My quads, they massive anyway. So 100%, I'm focusing now on upper body and my hamstrings.
Yeah, and I mean, you can never go wrong with training being the gym bro myself, I hear upper body and I'm just like, yep, obviously, that's one thing that, you should never really stop training, unfortunately. And did you find that difficult when you were a figure competitor, sort of? Because, like, in figure, they don't really judge you that much on your upper body, other than, like, your shoulders, really. That's about it. I mean, you can't really have big arms or big tries, really. And, how did you deal with that, sort of not being able to maybe train as much on the upper body as you would like to?
Yeah, so in when I was in figure class, I didn't train triceps and biceps for over a year. So I only start training my biceps and triceps this year in May. Because before I just couldn't, because they just grow too fast, so I couldn't train that. So that's when we changed the category with my coach. I was crying for a week because I felt like, oh my God, actually, I can work more, I can work harder, I can bring something better, I can make a changes. So for me was, yeah, I was just, yeah, in tears.
Yeah. Well, I would be too. Yeah, after taking that long off, it's got to be fun to, at least get that back in the mix. But if there was one thing that you could change about the sport of bodybuilding, if someone walked up to you and said that, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Changing bodybuilding. Uh, I'm not really sure. I would say I will change that, the fact like how people see us from outside. They just think like we just like silly people who just take steroids and we just go to the gym and we don't have like emotions, and we just like like whoever. Like I would like to see when we do the shows and stuff, like change and like show from inside how everything works, like how actually is, because people think it's really easy and they just think it's just one simple diet, but it's not. It's many like different like nutritions and everything coming into that, and like even cutting water and like all kind of different things, like you need to sometimes start yourself, and everybody is different. So I would just wanna like show like how this looks from inside.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that would be, again, another thing that I would love to see. But what advice do you have for people just looking to get started on their health and fitness journey? Because so many people are just, they're just so afraid and they're just so fearful these days. And I always tell people it's like once you take that first step in the gym, it is almost impossible to walk out without getting a workout in. But what advice would you have for someone who would walk up to you and just be like, "Hey, I'm just I'm just trying to see where I can get started at and what I can do." And what advice would you have for them just to get started, working out?
Well, I would just say like we all have one life. So if you just wanna change anything in yourself, how you look, just go and do it. Like never be afraid that people will judge you because people always will judge you. But most of it, you don't even know them. So what does matter if they judge you? It doesn't matter. When I started, people was looking at me and say like, "Oh, you will never get there. You will never have abs and everything." And then after, like my abs, they're amazing. And then people will say like, "Oh, you will never place anywhere." And I achieved a lot because I was believing in myself. I think that's what you have to do. Just believe in yourself. If nobody believes in you, the key is to believe in yourself and just make that first step for better life for yourself.
Absolutely. And I couldn't have said it better myself. And I mean, those days when you do wake up and you really just feel like crap and you feel like not going to the gym and your body is just all sore and you just feel like just not doing anything. How do you mentally just make yourself sort of get up and go to the gym? Because that's one thing that separates the general public from bodybuilders is like we talked about before, just that dedication and that drive that bodybuilders have where they're just like, hey, I need to get this workout in. But where do you think that comes from? Because I mean, that's a very, like we talked about before, that's a very significant trait to have in a person is just that willpower and being able to do that.
So with me, it's like obviously on prep, I did have like plenty of days when I just didn't want to go, but I just always put my headphones on. I listen some like great bodybuilders, some like then podcasts or whatever, and I just stop thinking and I just go there and I just start. And when I start warming up, start doing first set, second set, like then I'm getting that energy. So yeah, for me, it's like I just stop think and I just go and do, kind of like a robot.
That's really what you have to become though when you're in a prep basically because yeah, it's just that's the only way that I could ever see myself personally doing that was just like yeah, you just have to turn everything off and just be like okay, yeah, just go and get done. And normally once you get there, I mean it becomes a lot easier. So it's just like getting there, in the first place. But if we were to talk to a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk to a year from today?
Well, I got really it's crazy. People think I'm mad, but my goal is to get qualification for Olympia 2022. And it's crazy, I know that. But I'm going whatever I have to get that. That's my goal.
So how long are you planning on doing this off season look? Because I mean some people go off season for like half a year, some people go for it a couple of months. Do you have like a date and time of when you're like gonna start to
And
shred up again?
hopefully my off season will be only till around April. So I will be able to compete around September time. So maybe April, May. Like it depends what category I enter because I could enter women's physique and I don't need to grow as much because I'm already quite big. But if I'm going to enter bodybuilding, then yeah, definitely I need longer off season. But my plan is to get the qualification either way. So hopefully, yeah, around April, May, and then get ready for stage.
Yeah. And I mean, we are close to the holidays. This is like 2 weeks before Christmas, everyone. Do you sort of let yourself go a little bit when it comes to your nutrition a little bit during Christmas, or do you still like to dial things back? What is your approach like when it comes to eating during holidays?
So at the moment, I'm on 2 weeks mini cut. And then for Christmas, I will have like 3 days when I'm going to eat whatever I
That's
want.
hey, that's how you do it. And I had a question too because I mean, being from Poland, is there anything different about how Poles celebrate Christmas than they do in the UK?
Yeah, so like I celebrate Christmas in UK from like last probably 8 years. So I do an English version. So we got like massive roast dinner. But like in Poland, it's like 12 dishes, so it's like so much food. So I'm staying with my friend, so she going to do it the roast, but probably I will get some like Polish snacks.
Please tell me you got like some Polish sausage in there because I love Polish sausage.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, we have Polish shop here, so yeah, we can
Okay,
get
yes,
them.
yes, that is at least there's that, because that's one of the bratwursts that I like to have, before our big NFL football games over here. So I do enjoy that. But again, Laura, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey, and I really appreciate it. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Um, yeah, probably my coach. Say massive thank you to him, like Norbert Tymczak, Phoenix team, and yeah, like if not him, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Oh yeah, and it's really important with the coaches. And again, like I said, Laura, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I mean, I really, really appreciate it, and I think you're gonna do great. And I can't wait to see a year from now when we have you back on what you look like. Because if you're gonna go into bodybuilding, I just can't wait to see that change. And I wish you nothing but the best. And again, thank you so much. You were an absolute
Thank you
delight to
so
talk
much as
to.
well. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Absolutely. Well, again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.